Well, I guess I'm plagued. I come across too vague. I'm not seen.
I had messaged about 250 women on dating sites and only had 2 dates because of that, with 2 different women. I didn't have a second date with either woman. A big majority of the women who replied turned out to live in different countries, particularly really far away countries. I was getting on really well with a woman from a faraway country. We talked for several months and I did book a flight to see her. People have often told me and other people that a relationship won't solve your problems, it won't make you happy. In my experience, this is really untrue. When I'm with someone and they like me and I like them, I feel loads happier, even when it's been with someone who I've not been able to meet in person. When you can still feel connected online with being able to have video calls, video messages, etc. With talking to her, I usually felt happy. Before, I usually felt depressed, so it really did make a difference. It was quite scary that I had this flight coming up. This would be my first time flying alone, the longest I'd ever travelled, and my first time getting a connecting flight. It was going to take me about 18 hours to fly there, about 20 hours to fly back home at the end of the trip. My family had planned to get the train with me to the airport. Unfortunately, it turned out that the trains were really disrupted, but luckily they managed to sort out the journey so we could get part of the way in a cab and the rest of the way on the train. I have a lot of anxiety about if people start playing stuff from their phone speakers because it can really wind me up and I don't know how to deal with the situation a lot of the time. Mostly people weren't playing stuff from their phones, which I was glad about because it was a long train journey. Someone did start playing something from their phone and a family member said, "Where's that music coming from?" And the person stopped playing it. I was glad that my family were a lot better at dealing with this stuff, so that really helped me. This helped when I had a really long queue at the airport. Not only was I stuck in a long queue, but with people having their phone calls on speakerphone, that made it even worse to have to endure it for a long time. But luckily my family were much better than me at confronting people and calmly asking them to stop playing what they were playing, and they did. When I was finally queuing up at the airport to go out to the right terminal to get my flight, I noticed the lights being bright, which is something that can cause sensory pain to autistic people like myself, so not very accessible of the airport. In the queue, people were playing stuff on their phones and I tried to tell people to stop. I'm not good at being heard, maybe because I'm not good at talking loudly or making eye contact. People didn't realise I was talking to them, so this made it much worse when I was by myself and couldn't get people to stop playing stuff. It makes me wonder how I can cope in this world and how I can get more independent when I keep having to deal with this stuff. Several people were doing this, playing stuff from their phones in this long queue, and it also made me think about the decline there has been in manners. I really hoped people wouldn't be playing stuff from their phones on the aeroplane, but they were. It made me think, how can I cope with this? Luckily, the TV shows and films meant people didn't keep playing stuff from their phones for too long, and then pretty much everyone had their headphones on listening to or watching stuff on the screens. It felt boring and worrying how long we were waiting for the plane to take off, especially as I had a connecting flight I needed to get to. I also felt bored being by myself and wished I was travelling with other people. Something that made the journey difficult was someone repeatedly putting their elbow on the elbow rest going into my personal space, and I repeatedly had to push their elbow off of the armrest. With me not being able to have gluten or dairy and also not eating fish, it had made putting my dietary requirements down for what food I wanted on the plane difficult. You couldn't put down more than one dietary requirement as I needed to. With my past experiences of flying, I found that people really often brought you fish as a meal, so I thought the best option was to put myself down for vegetarian meals. And I could select specific meals that I thought weren't that likely to have gluten or dairy. I would rather accidentally have gluten or dairy than end up eating fish or other sea creatures, so this was the risk I decided to take. At the airport, waiting for my connecting flight, there were loads of people playing stuff on their phone and I was stuck there for an hour dealing with it. I didn't feel that I could listen to music or play a video game, which I would be doing with headphones if I did so, in case I missed an announcement telling us to start boarding the plane. With travelling on these planes, I felt everything was really good except having to deal with other people invade your personal space and with playing stuff from their phones. It was good how they kept bringing you drinks and food, and I found they had a lot of good TV shows and films available to watch. The food and the TV shows and films really helped pass the time. I did feel trapped a lot of the times. I felt that I couldn't ask the people next to me to get up because I needed to get up and move. It was quite scary when I was told about scams that there could be when I got to the airport. When I landed in the country I would be visiting, I was told people might distract me so they could steal my bag, run off with it before I could stop them, all that sort of stuff. So I was pretty concerned about when I would get to the airport. Of course I would have to rush and all that to make sure no one stole anything from me, but it was fine. There were some people trying to talk to me. I could tell they were scammers and I just knew to ignore them. I was a bit worried when I heard I would have to speak to immigration when I landed in the country I was visiting. I was worried I would have to go into some room and have some big interrogation style meeting where I would be asked loads of questions about why I was in this country. I just had to show my passport and have a photograph taken and then I could just go. I didn't realise that was immigration, what I'd just gone through. I thought I might have missed it and still need to go through immigration. It made me think how I'm lucky how I'm not interrogated like a lot of immigrants from other countries. When me and the woman I was meeting finally met, we did get on really well. Friends and family had been very skeptical about me travelling a long way to meet someone I had never met before, and were even worried about it being a con, a scam, something like that. I felt I had got very good at detecting scams and had noticed them a lot on dating sites. Us getting on well shows just how you can get to know someone from having video calls, video messages, audio, texting, pictures every day. Online dating dates I'd had before that had gone well had nearly always been ones where we had got to know each other well through talking a lot before meeting for our first date. People were playing stuff from their phones, but I thought hopefully I would be better at dealing with this because I was enjoying spending time with the woman that I had travelled there to meet. I had been trying to learn the language that she speaks. Even though people speak English there like they do in pretty much every country now, it felt polite to make an effort and try learning some of the words and expressions. With talking to people such as cab drivers, people who worked at hotels, at bars, etc., I was too nervous to say the words from their language very loudly, and so I worried I was looking rude not talking loudly enough. I have trouble trying to communicate with people in England in my own language, let alone being in another country that I didn't know, trying to use words and expressions that were new to me. I was nervous about meeting her family. I'm always nervous about meeting a girlfriend's parents. I'm worried that they will be protective. I felt nervous anytime I was left alone when I might have to speak to a family member of hers. I was also worried about when we didn't hang out with them, if it would look rude. In the past, my anxiety has been mistaken for rudeness several times. I didn't need to worry as her family were very nice, welcoming, accommodating, etc. I had felt that I had got a lot better at approaching people, talking to people confidently, etc. since I was 16 and started college 20 years ago. This was something I'd been developing over the years. This was particularly difficult. I also remember times in the past where I had been yelled at because I didn't know the right way of approaching people, the right things to say, because I didn't talk to them confidently enough, because I didn't know what to say. Something really positive was how I didn't check my social media very much while I was there. I didn't feel I needed to tweet, to post to Instagram, etc. I barely used social media at all. I thought this was a sign I was enjoying myself. I know some people always post when they're away, but I thought how social media is a sign of unhappiness. You want someone's attention, you have to tell people what you're doing, and you want some sort of validation that people think that what you're doing in your life is good. Whether that's if you're promoting yourself as an artist, or even if you're just sharing things from your everyday life. It feels if you're having a good time, you don't need to show people that you are, that you can just be happy. I also thought that when I was angry about things in the future, rather than tweeting about them, maybe I should write a song about the situation instead. This would encourage me to write songs more, which I didn't think I was doing enough. I think social media was taking up too much time and taking me away from creativity. I had heard that people are less creative now. They create things less because they're focusing on social media so much. Something else positive was I noticed I didn't drink hardly anything while I was there. I didn't drink for about a week. This was the longest I had not drunk for about 6 years. For a long time I had drunk most days. I felt I needed alcohol to help deal with my insomnia and my depression. It was good to see how I didn't need alcohol to sleep or to feel okay. I wanted to continue to not drink all the time. Not getting wound up by people playing stuff from their phone speakers was getting more difficult, especially after her and her friend started doing it as well. I kept saying things to her to try and get the conversation going again so I wouldn't have to keep listening to things playing from her phone. The place we had travelled to was really loud. I was finding it uncomfortable with how loud it was. She wanted to stay there an extra night so we wouldn't miss out on some of the activities that we could do. The idea of staying there an extra night seemed unbearable. I felt like I only just managed to cope with staying there for as long as we were planning to stay there. I wondered if I should do the thing of setting my boundaries as an autistic person for how much I can tolerate. Though seeing that I didn't want to make her miss out on these activities, I did agree to stay there an extra night. I was glad that they were fully booked and we had to stay somewhere else nearby. This place was fortunately much quieter. Staying there meant we were still in the area where we could do the activities we were planning to do. Towards the end of the trip, we were getting sad that it was coming up to the end of the time we were going to spend together. I mentioned how we would still be able to send videos, have calls, message, etc. every day as we were doing before. On our last day, we went back to the airport together. She wasn't allowed in the queue with me at the airport. I was queuing for more than an hour. I was worried in case I was in the wrong queue and if this could affect me getting my flight on time, or if it could just mean that we had less time to spend together after I was done queuing at the airport. There were no staff to approach for such a long time. I didn't want to lose my place in line, but I'd already been queuing for a long time, and when I tried to call staff as they were going past, they didn't notice me. On the aeroplane, I had problems with people with their elbows. It was like people weren't considering that there was someone next to them, someone they could make very uncomfortable. The person on the plane was maybe even worse than the person on the first plane I was on, with his elbow, and he kept coughing near me as well without covering his mouth. Really wound up by this person. There was a lot more food I couldn't eat on the plane. Some I did, some I didn't. I did get ill flying back. Even though it was taking me a long time to recover from jet lag, life still felt happier because me and the woman I'd met were still talking every day.
In the background.